What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We're here for, of course, the third and final card of the Cage Warriors trilogy, the fourth installment that we've had over the past 12 months. But of course, we are at the ultimate and final card, and it's a fantastic fight. Of course, the vacant welterweight title is on the line between Jack Grant and Ian Garry. Ian Garry, the future, as he's his nickname is the future. He is the future of mixed martial arts, I believe, at least within Ireland. I think he's going to be their next. He's the next big thing. He's their next prodigy. He's going to be someone we're going to be looking at for the next 10, 15 years as the guy. But he's in for a tough night tonight, potentially, with Jack Grant, of course. But of course, before we get into that, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to go give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at CageChat MMA. And let's get into let's get into Cage Warriors 125. Now, of course, last night, Cage Warriors 124 took place, and we saw we saw, of course, Joe McColgan become a Cage Warriors lightweight champion after beating Adi Sadari, of course, in a fantastic performance. He took that fight over from start to finish and got that submission in round 3. And we could potentially be seeing another Irish champion tonight in Ian Garry. I do believe Ian Garry gets the job done, but it's hard to overlook Jack Grant. I was looking at his performances today, especially in those last 2 fights. He's been phenomenal, and you can see that move up to welterweight has done him the world of good against Midas Laminas. Obviously lost that split decision against Adi Sadari, and then prior to that beat Yassim Belhaj. So those 2 wins have been phenomenal wins, and 5 submissions as well. We know Ian Garry is quite he's definitely someone you could expect to be moving up to middleweight, probably around the 28, 29. He's quite big for that welterweight division. He's very long, he's very, very stocky. He's got those long legs that he can keep at distance. He can get in and out pretty quickly. His footwork's amazing. Whereas Jack Grant is a lightweight who's moved up to this division. So it's going to be interesting to see how that balance plays out, of course. But, pardon me. But yeah, of course, Ian Garry, my only regret is not having seen him fight Cage Warriors. I don't think he's going to be there long. I think he's got tonight. If he wins the belt tonight, he's probably got 1, maybe 2 more if he goes up to maybe try that middleweight title. Like got won by Matthew Bonner on Thursday, of course. He might want to go up and become a 2-time champion, or he might want to defend his belt and go over to UFC. But he's certainly starting to knock on that door. It's 6-0. If he moves to 7-0 tonight with an impressive finish, he's someone who, he gets called the next Conor McGregor, but he could be someone who takes the reins from Conor McGregor. Because Conor McGregor could be walking away from the sport entirely at UFC 264 if he loses. He might have 1 or 2 fights left, but you've got the next generation, and I don't like this. He's the next McGregor, he's the next this or that. He's the first Ian Garry, and he is the future, as he proclaims. There's a bit of Wonder Boy about him, a little bit of Adesanya about him in terms of the way he carries himself. I think Wonder Boy more inside the cage. He's very dangerous, and he's got fantastic kicks, fantastic striking. He's looking good on the ground. He's not quite got a submission win yet, but it's coming. He's got actually a rear naked choke against Thiglak, of course. He got that in his record, but you can see him coming. And I watched his fights in reverse order from the Rostam Akman fight, which is absolutely a phenomenal fight. Obviously, Akman, a UFC level caliber fighter, is in terms of the experience his most anticipated matchup, you could say, for Ian Garry. And he put him away with ease in round 2. Obviously, Lawrence Tracy beat via ground pound Jordan McManus, and Jack Grant. I feel like he's almost he's slowly getting to him. He's strangling him in a bit. And, you can see these 2 they are very good friends. You can see it in the Unlocked episode for Cage Warriors 125. It's interesting to me how that relationship and that mentality can work going into the fight when you are, quite good pals with someone. Because for me, at least, I wouldn't want to be speaking or seeing my opponent in the build-up to a fight 24 hours before a fight when you're making weight. And these 2 are, having a laugh and a joke. And obviously, Cage Warriors is a good family. You see it all the time. There's a family element to Cage Warriors, and the way that they treat their staff and their fighters, of course. And it's it's all in good blood and respect. And once the cage door closes tonight, it's going to be a great war. But it'd be interesting to see how Ian Garry is very confident. People call him cocky, arrogant. He reminds you a little bit of Zlatan Ibrahimovic in a way, where he knows how good he is. He's got that element of stardom about him, and I think that's going to come out tonight. I think he does win that vacant welterweight title. But again, Jack Grant, it's hard to look over him. He's got a fantastic record. He's 17-6, so He's on 23 fights. He's had 17 more fights than Ian Garry as a whole. So in terms of the professional record standpoint, this is his most experienced opponent. Maybe he's not reached the levels that Ackman has in terms of fighting in the biggest organizations in terms of the UFC. But Jack Grant's been there and done it, and he's had some losses. That Adji Sadari loss, of course, the Jai Herbert loss. He's had those title losses. You know how he knows how it feels to be on the end of those title losses, and he's not going to want that sting again tonight. And he's the fact that he's been there twice already may put him in even better stead for him. But I think the fact that it feels almost like Ian Garry's the champion going into this already, and Jack Grant's challenging him. It does have that almost element about it where everyone's focused on Ian Garry and leaving Jack Grant almost out in the cold. And maybe him coming in as an underdog tonight, as someone who's not being overlooked, but someone who's not being being given that respect and that adulation, and not someone who's being loved going into the fight. Maybe that works better for him. It was interesting to see that balance yesterday between the two and how friendly they were. Because I think Ian Garry can take that in his stride. He's full of respect. If you look at his a lot of his post-fight interviews are all about respect and giving his opponent respect. Apart that from that Thick Lap one, where there was some bad blood going into that one. So it is interesting to see how tonight works out, and I think we're in for a terrific night. I'm thankful this is the last one because it is the cherry on the cake from the Cage Warriors trilogy. Of course, we saw the middleweight title and the lightweight title taking place, but tonight could be a crown and a very special moment for Irish MMA and European MMA as a whole. And we're going to be seeing someone who I think within 2022, maybe at the start of 2022, is definitely could be looked at as someone in the UFC. You can already see him in those denim pants. He's looked at he's called out the Mike Pros. He's looked at the Wonder Boys. He said that'd be his almost dream fight, I think. So he's got that air of stardom about him, and of course, it's hard not to get wrapped up in that. And I do think I'm a fan of his. I think what he's doing is phenomenal. He's going around his work in good fashion. He's not someone who's very brash and very sort of disrespectful to anyone, which is nice to see. Someone you can get behind, and he's not a bit of the prick. He's confident, and that confidence is quite inspiring, if anything. And the fact that he's still only 23 years old, he's 6-0, he's fighting for a world title tonight is absolutely bonkers, and it doesn't seem to be phasing him, which is why I think a lot of people are going in favour of him winning tonight over Jack Grant, me included. But let us know your thoughts. Of course, it is a fantastic main event. This card isn't. Well, it's got some good names on it. Obviously, Tobias Harila was the star of the show of the last Cage Warriors trilogies. You got Conor Hignett on there. You got Scott Malone, James Hendon, Deki McAleenan, and of course, is fighting tonight against Steve McIntosh. I felt like the past two maybe had more closer matchups and more. They had a bit more spice about them. This one feels very top heavy in regard to the card tonight, but a fantastic, third event. Of course, it's lost a couple of fights in this one. This one got hit, lost 4 or 5 fights. It lost Kent Kapanen, who was superb in the last Cage Warriors trilogy. Of course, lost Adam Amarasinghe, of course. So it has lost a lot of names, and obviously Paul Redmond it lost as well. So it's lost a couple of fights on there, and it's narrowed it down to just the 8-fight card tonight. And with Cage Warriors pacing, it's going to be phenomenal. Of course, these, they don't waste any time, do they, with their fights? It's one in, one out very quickly, and it's a fantastic product that Cage Warriors, have created and produced. It'll be interesting to see what happens at Cage Warriors 126, of course, when it's in America and California. But yeah, the main event for me, I do think Ian Garry does go 7-0. I think it's either within 3. I would say I think Ian Garry gets it done, but there's the whole Team KF drama that's been going on that unfolded this week with Ian Garry making the announcement that he's no longer with his team, the team that got him up to this point at 6-0. Again, rewatching their fights, you can see the closeness and the love between the camp between Ian Garry and Team KF, and it's interesting to see how that's unfolded and been unwrapped within the last 3-4 months, and for their team to pull out of his biggest fight 10 days before the fight is very interesting. We're going to see a lot more about it tonight, probably hear a lot about it tonight and in the next week or two, depending on the result, etc. But the fact that that's happened, it depends on how that's affected Ian Garry. It doesn't look like he's affected it, but it must have done. The fact that he spent so many hours, so many months and years with Team KF, the fact that they're no longer together is a tough one. You need to look at Irish MMA, of course, my good friend Quilter, and you need to look at Twitter. There was a sadness about the finding out that Ian Garry was no longer with that team. It's interesting to see where his future lays with his team. He's at this pivotal point now. He's still very young. He's very driven, very determined, but you don't want to see anyone and outside influences perhaps coming in and taking his spotlight, you could say, and disrupting his progress, because you look at the mic page, you look at there's been a lot of talk about camps and coaches within the past 12 months and wrong fits here and there, but you also see all the time influences coming out from once you start seeing that success, and you're getting more and more popular within your city, within your country. There's people that want to come in and take that with bad intentions. Now, hopefully that isn't the case, but it'd be interesting to see what unfolds in the next week or two. But I expect Ian Garry to go in and do the business nonetheless. He seems to be an astute professional and someone you can count on to get the job done, as you can with Tobias Harila, of course. Bad intention, by nickname, bad intention by nature, of course. He was absolutely phenomenal. His last performance against Aidan Stephen, of course, his Cage Warriors debut. He put in a fantastic first round finish, of course, only lasted a minute. But he's a character, isn't he? If you saw him on the Unplugged show that they did for 125, he's someone who wants to make a show of the whole event. He's not in here just to come in and fight. He wants to. His walkout is phenomenally scary. It's terrifying. You saw him in that orange jumpsuit with the clown mask on, looking like he's ready for a GTA heist or something like that. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's quite funny, and it's good to see characters like that in this sport. And he's absolutely phenomenal once he steps into the cage. He is up against William Gomez. Of course, he's making his Cage Warriors debut again. Coming in to maybe steal some of that shine from Tobias Harila, and maybe make himself the star of this trilogy. Of course, he is 6-2. Obviously, Tobias Harila is 9-1. Many people think he's the next in line for the featherweight title, especially with the win tonight. Obviously, we didn't see Morgan Sherrier versus Jordan Duchenik this week, which was supposed to take place yesterday. That's going to take place on the next trilogy, I'd imagine. So he might not get the next title, but he might get the next one after that, or maybe a win tonight sets him up with a number one contender bout with Paul Hughes. Many wanted to see Paul Hughes fight that title, so maybe if Harila wins tonight, you have to see Hughes versus Harila for the victor between Vucenic and Ferrier, of course, or Sherrier, of course. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Tobias Harila in the co-main event. He is someone you can see becoming a star, and someone you can see someone get a lot of social media shares with his walkouts, etc. A bit like Paddy Pimblett, of course. You always see anytime his name's mentioned, that walkout in Liverpool is brought out and shared on social media, and it's absolutely you get goosebumps from watching it. And it's the same with Harila. He could be someone with that caliber and that potential. Of course, on the next fight down, we've got Deki McAleenan versus Steve McIntosh. Ireland versus Scotland this time. We had Scotland versus England last night, or not, if not the night before. But obviously 7-3-1 against 6-2. This is in the lightweight division. Of course, we've got James Hendon versus Paul McBain. Scott Malone versus Zatar Ortas. I believe that's the pronunciation. Again, someone with Tobias Harila, being successful, we saw a lot of Scandinavian fighters being signed up by Cage Warriors, and of course, he's making his debut again tonight. Another Swedish fighter of top caliber coming through. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they do. Of course, you've got Conor Hignett versus Gerardo Fanny. Of course, Gerardo Fanny lost back in October or December. It might have been on the Cage Warriors trilogy against Jack Cartwright and a title shot. So Conor Hignett, 9-6, going to be looking to maybe boost himself up. Maybe not quite the number one contender. I think that was maybe decided yesterday, you could say. But, Hand Grenade could certainly put himself in the mix there with another win tonight, of course. That's down in flyweight even, sorry. So, yeah, maybe you got the flyweight title going on, of course. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on there, of course. You got Sam Creasy versus Luke Shanks now. The former champion put in a fantastic performance yesterday. You got Scott Pedersen versus Marcus Lewis, and Kieran Mulholland versus Connor Wilson to open up the card, which is probably starting on. Now it did start at 2:30. It's a fantastic day today. You got Cage Warriors 125. You got UFC Vegas 30 with Garant versus Volkov, and of course, if you're a football fan, you got Euros 2020. You got the knockout games going on today as well between Wales and Denmark and Italy and Spain, I believe. So a fantastic day all round for sports fans. And I'm going to leave it there, guys, so we can go and enjoy Cage Warriors 125. The last one for a month, I know we're back with Cage Warriors 126. Obviously, they're signing some good talent up there. They've signed Max Rushkoff from the UFC. So that's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back. Of course, a fantastic article and interview with MMA Junkie, I believe it was. So it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds and how that card starts to build up now. But tonight, I think it's going to be Ian Garry's night, and we're going to see the future born into the present. And maybe for the last time in Cage Warriors, who knows? Yes, make sure to hit that subscribe button, make sure to drop this a follow, of course, on CageChat MMA on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I'll see you guys later on for the UFC Vegas 30 preview.